Y'all. So this is part 2 of our Seed Starting for Beginners series. If you're just joining us, last episode we talked about several methods of seed starting and got some guidance on when to start our seeds. As we continue in this episode, I want to talk about some of the problems you may encounter when seed starting. I also want to talk about how to avoid problems we see later on with the right next steps.
Welcome to Garden Things with Friends, where we share simple garden tips and tricks to help busy beginner gardeners build their dream garden. Be sure to check out the resources below the video as I share all my favorite recommendations, as well as bonus resources to this video. And if you love the episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification icon so you never miss an upload. Now, let's get back to the video.
All right, y'all, let's dive right into some of the common issues we can see with seed starting. Now, my first year of gardening, I was winging it pretty hard. Without much research, I bought a bunch of seeds and some red cups. I filled the cups with potting soil and waited for germination. And that happened when I expected it to. But then my seedlings kept growing up, and then they were leaning, and then they started tipping over. So I just assumed at that point that they were ready to go outside. And I started planting them in the heat in Mississippi. Now, some of the more robust seedlings thrived, and we'll call that beginner's luck. But many others did not, and I ended up having to buy starts. I want you to avoid this common beginner gardener cycle. So we're going to look at 6 of the common problems that beginner gardeners run into while seed starting. So the first problem that a lot of beginners run into is that their seedlings sprout and then they die. Here's the setup. You've been monitoring your seedlings, keeping the starting mix moist, and watching daily. You finally see seedlings emerge through the soil. They grow nice and healthy and maybe even get a second set of leaves, and then all of a sudden, they sort of tip over and die without any notice. The problem here is damping off, which is a soil-borne fungal disease that affects seedlings subject to excessively moist environments. And unfortunately, these seedlings don't survive and will need to be replaced. Now, the solution here is to reduce moisture and increase air circulation. You want to make sure that you're only watering when needed. I also like to bottom water, which allows the soil to retain the amount of moisture needed without getting the surface very wet. Now, air circulation alleviates some of the excessive moisture and also helps to strengthen your seedlings. And this is going to reduce the chances of damping off. You can use a fan or an open window to promote airflow. Now, our next issue is the soil turning white from mold or green from algae. And this is a problem with moisture again. Mold and fungus thrive in ultra-moist environments. And if your soil remains too wet, it develops mold on the surface, which could ultimately lead to damping off, our first issue. Your solution here again is going to be air circulation and sometimes aeration of the soil. You could gently roughen the soil surface or add cinnamon to the surface of your soil. Cinnamon is antibacterial and antifungal, and there's so many growers that swear by its use, especially with seed starting. Our next problem is one that so many beginner gardeners have and they don't even realize it's an issue, and that's leggy seedlings. Now, this is similar to the problem in my first garden, and you may notice that your seedlings grow up really long and thin, and then they seem to lean in one direction or the other. They may look spindly. The problem here is inadequate light. Newly emerged seedlings will grow towards a light source. If they are too far away from the light source, then they start to reach towards any light they can find. This gives them that very obvious leggy appearance. And your solution for this is going to be adjust the placement. Now, this is an issue that can be corrected early so that you can save your seedlings, but if not, you can consider replanting. You want your seedlings to be about 4 inches away from your grow light. I don't recommend starting seeds in a window as that amount of light is often not intense enough for the seedlings to flourish, and weak seedlings make for weak, mature plants. Now, what if your seeds never germinate? Perhaps you've done everything right. You seed out a row of peppers and wait, but only get 4 of the 10 seeds planted to germinate. This is a problem with germination rate, and there are a few reasons that can cause low germination rates. The first problem could be old seeds. Now, while seeds don't expire, the germination rates of seeds do decrease over time. Some seeds that are notorious for reduced germination rates with age are onions and lettuce. Now, if this is the case for you, you may just have to overseed your seedling trays, or you can purchase newer seeds. Now, the second reason for a poor germination rate is the germination method used, particularly the temperature of your seed starting mix. Now, seeds are triggered to germinate when the soil reaches a certain temperature. Outside of that temperature, they will continue to sit dormant. You can use a heat mat, and this is an excellent way to increase the temperature of your soil and improve your germination rates. Okay, problem 5. What happens if you have yellowing leaves? Now, one of the problems I found with my seedlings last year was that all of a sudden they just started turning yellow and dropping leaves. And by this time, they'd already been potted up and they were growing quite large, so they were healthy plants. Now, I had no idea at the time that I needed to fertilize my seedlings. Yellowing leaves is a sure sign of lack of nutrients. When plants use up all the nutrients present in the soil, they will start to show deficiency. And this is an easy fix: fertilize. Once your seedlings have grown their first set of true leaves, you can begin fertilizing once or twice a week at half the dose. Now, you want to make sure that you're following the recommended rates and schedules for fertilization according to whatever type of fertilizer you choose. Now, for our last problem, and that is this. You notice small black bugs flying around your seedlings or little white translucent worms crawling in the soil. You may notice small spider webs or these small, thin, rice-shaped bugs. Pests can wreak havoc on your seedlings and should be addressed as soon as possible. The small black bugs are fungus gnats, and those white translucent worms are their larvae. The spider webs, often a sign of spider mites, and the small, thin, rice-shaped bugs are thrips. And the solution is going to vary. There's so many ways to deal with pest issues, and depending on the size of your seedlings, you may take or make different choices. Fungus gnats and their larvae are the easiest to deal with. You want to deal with the fungus, so increasing airflow with a fan and sprinkle cinnamon on the surface of your soil while monitoring your water. For all other pests, it is possibly best to just restart your seedlings. Now, you could use things like insecticidal soap and neem oil, but pest pressure may be more than your young plants can handle. Remember, strong seedlings make strong adults, weak seedlings, weak adults. Now, I want to shift gears a little before we end and give you a few tips for successful seed starting. Remember, the goal of starting seeds is to get mature plants that produce a harvest for you. Seed starting issues can hinder the growth of your seedlings and the productivity of your mature plants. So here are just a few things that can help decrease germination problems and improve success in your garden. You want to start with quality seeds from a reputable source to ensure high germination rates. Invest in a good seed starting mix that's lightweight, sterile, and provides proper drainage. Start seeds in a warm environment between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit to promote germination. And definitely use a grow light to ensure seedlings have adequate light for germination and development. Lastly, use a fan to improve air circulation and decrease the presence of mold and certain pests. We want to pay attention to the specific needs of each type of plant you're starting, as a lot of times these different plants require different levels of moisture and nutrition. Additionally, Evaluate your root development and be prepared to transplant into larger containers to avoid root-bound transplants. All right, y'all, that's it for this episode of Garden Things with Friends. I hope this gave you some insight into some of the seed starting problems you may see and hopefully help you avoid some of those most common ones. If you dug this episode, I would be honored if you would rate this podcast and spread the word to your friends who are also passionate about gardening. Your 5-star support fuels the growth of Garden Things with Friends, and together we'll cultivate a network of thriving gardens and plant-loving friends. Happy gardening, and remember, it's never the wrong time to grow where you are.